Guys, today we're here in Santa Barbara do Oeste, and I'm with my friend Osni Nielsen. It had been almost 29 years since we last met, since 1996, which was when the Varginha case happened. And today we're going to be doing an interview. We're going to be digging into our memories for some interesting and colorful stories from CPEX research. He was also part of CPEX, which was a group coordinated by Eduardo and Osvaldo Mondini. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation after the intro. So folks, we're back. Osnini, tell us some stories from back in the 90s when you were really active at CPEX and you experienced pretty much the most important cases here in the Americana and Santa Barbara region. And even Campinas itself, which was involved in the Varginha case.
Exactly. There were even cases from Tietê, Piracicaba, São Pedro, Vargem Grande do Sul. Even a small town near Ribeirão Preto, where the police chief...
Catanduva.
No, a little closer this way. The land of that guy who's now a politician, the one who had an eye problem, if I'm not mistaken. And wow, the pronoun disappeared. I don't memorize it. It's not very easy, right? Unless you have a lot of contact. But
there were several cases in different cities,
including one that I went to investigate in Minas Gerais, the case of Ituramano.
Oh, the couple there who was abducted. Oh,
about the little girl who used to draw the aliens and all. I'm sending you everything there, the documentation. Or which one do you prefer that I...
Whatever you want. Where should we start? Let's
start with Tietê here, Tietê. It was a case where a band from Campinas was coming from Sorocaba, and when passing through Tietê, they saw a spacecraft landing and more, and they passed by. But later, talking in the van they were traveling in, they decided to go back. And when they came back, there were already people from nearby. It was still in the rural area. People had already run here and there. And two boys who were on bicycles went down a sugarcane path. And when they turned near a fence where there was a slope going down, there was a stream. When they passed near the fence there, he even fell off the bicycle, gave the bicycle back. He saw two small beings crossing the street between the fence and the sugarcane field. Then they stood there watching and all. The two of them were on a bicycle, just them. They left the bicycle and ran back up to tell their father. About 80 meters, 70, depending on what you call a sugarcane plot, right? When we arrived, people came to look. The guy with the pills saw me coming down the untouched right side. They were coming from the direction of Campinas, and then they turned back, started talking and all that. Oh, when they went down there, after the boys had come back, they went down to take a look near the stream, and there was a craft about 15 meters in diameter or so. Like a disc shape, right? Like a Damskis, you know? And when they got there, the beings were getting into the ship and it took off about 45 degrees until it disappeared. Those
beings they saw initially, the two of them. And what was their type?
Like gray, more or less, according to the description they gave, it was the gray.
Yeah, this was in the 90s.
The 90s, I didn't start in 90, more like 92, around there, 91. And after that case, what else happened? After that one, there were a few cases here in Piracicaba and São Pedro, including some vigils that we held in São Pedro. In one of them, a portal opened in the mountain range that was facing São Pedro. It's a red earth cliff, and we were there holding the vigil and all, talking, looking at the sky and so on, watching the movement of satellites. and I looked toward the hill in front and saw a green light appear in the middle of the hill. I said, "There's nothing, just a cliff." I told everyone, and they all started looking over there. Then the light from the spot widened into a rectangle. And after a while, thinking that maybe something would come out or something would go in there, but then it closed again. And then, in the morning, we went there in front of the hill. Nothing shows up, just a big wall.
Just the big red wall there.
Smooth. So I believe there was some kind of opening system. Something must have been inside the hill, because that's not just anything.
That was in Piracicaba?
In San Pedro, up in the mountains. Yeah, we used to always go up to the mountains. Afterwards,
There was a case you investigated. I remember it was about Marcelo, a guy who was abducted. And when he blacked out, afterwards he showed up in Santa Barbara and he...
looked for you, exactly.
Tell me a little bit about this case, because it was a really interesting case. The media reported a lot about it at that time.
Exactly. I was at home. Usually, when Ralph went out, I always waited for him to come back. He was a young guy, you know. I waited for him to get home before I went to bed. And around 11:30 at night, someone showed up there. "Hey, Zippo." At the snack bar down there on 13th Street, right at the corner with 15th of November Street, there was a snack bar that was always there. A guy showed up who came from Capivari, and he was asking to call you over there. So I called my son. He was out and he had my car, right? So I went there, got Edson, brought him to my house and all, because he was
He was somewhat disoriented.
He was. And then we talked, and he told us everything he knew and what had happened. He was coming back from Capivari. And at a certain point on the road, right there, he saw a light reflecting on the ground next to the road, and he kept moving toward that light. Suddenly, the light focused on top of his car, and he couldn't see because it was right above the roof. And the car started to heat up. He said that the rubber on the steering wheel became soft, and then he blacked out.
Due to the heat
And then later, he found out that the car was lifted up to the disk, or a spacecraft, because he couldn't specify the shape of the craft. And then, after some time, he was dropped back at a distance of, I think it must be about 7 kilometers from the place where he was picked up to the place where he was dropped off. He was dropped off here, already 1.5 kilometers from Via Rome, just about to enter the city. And then a hypnotic regression was conducted and so on to see what happened. And he had a strong block that reached a certain point. The block was significant.
he couldn't remove the block.
Then he would wake up and know he couldn't do it. So
He went deeper under hypnosis.
that's right. But after that, after some time, I think about a month or so, 20 days to a month, he started having telepathic contact with a young woman. She was from Piracicaba, near Piracicaba, from Rio das Pedras. And in Rio das Pedras, his father's relatives lived there. So he went there to find out and so on. And this girl was an acquaintance of a daughter of his father's cousin. Then they met and so on. And he found out that she was also abducted, but on the Sugar Highway at the same time and on the same night.
Maybe this connection they had was because of this abduction.
Probably because they hadn't had any contact before. Eventually they got married. I haven't been in touch with them since. I don't know how things are. We even went there and all. After that, it happened. It seems like he had a few more problems and all. But after that, I lost contact with him. Because his family, his mother lived next to me near the hospital where I used to live when I grew up there in that neighborhood.
Now, what's most interesting is that OS and I saw that time of the Varginha ET case, right? And how were there 3 creatures that were taken to Unicamp? At the time, CPEX was kind of responsible for gathering everything that was happening in the region, and OSNI was really tuned in. From that time, what interesting things do you remember?
Look, the most important thing was that a soldier from the military police here in the west zone of the city, he was sick. He was undergoing treatment in Campinas at the barracks, and he went there for an appointment, and his appointment was the last one. And when it was around 5 o'clock, 5:30 post-meridium, all the civilians evacuated the barracks. They were evacuated. Even the doctor said he didn't know why, but they were evacuating. Then they came and told him to hurry up with the appointment, that there were more. One ahead of him, then him. The doctor said, I can't leave because we need to schedule another appointment. But then they said, hurry up and all that. The supervisor came over to talk, and then it was all right. And from up there, he was watching the entrance courtyard, right there. A truck loaded with ice arrived, ice, crushed ice, bags of ice, and unloaded everything there. And he started seeing only Estrella Nauro going into the barracks courtyard there.
This was at the military police barracks.
Military here, right at the entrance of Campinas, coming from Montemora, from Atuba through Santos Dumont, you know. And he said, but what could be happening there? The doctor called him, rushed the appointment, and he had to go. But then they ended up tipping him off that it looked like someone was coming. There was an alien case and such that they were bringing there to divert attention. Because there were people keeping watch at Unicamp and at the medical examiner's office, so they diverted it to...
They diverted it here to
the military police headquarters. No one went there. And I couldn't talk to the people because my phone was tapped and there was what did they call it? Bills or something that they used to keep you from talking? You'd pick up the phone off the hook and start. You couldn't talk.
Because when that happened, you tried to warn the people at CPEX at...
CPEX, wasn't that where they were on duty? There was one brother at Unicamp and another at the medical examiner's office. I was going to say I had to go to the barracks, but I couldn't.
Because it was tapped and it was blocked. Your phone, there was...
a bunch of times for over a month during this case. So every time I picked up the phone, there was already someone on the line. Then the line would go back to normal, and my phone was tapped because of that.
So from that time, what do you think was also the most relevant? Were you able, in the case of CPEX, to talk to any military personnel from Escola Preparatoria de Cadetes do Exército, for example, or talk to someone from Unicamp, a doctor, a nurse who confirmed anything? No.
I couldn't, and Oswaldo couldn't either, because he didn't tell me anything else about it. Just the contacts he kept with Varginha. And an acquaintance of mine who lived in Virginia. He knew the owner of the farm where the craft crashed.
Leaving from where it would be, this place?
It would be between Varginha and the name of a person there.
Eloy Mendez.
Eloy Mendez, yes, between Varginha and Eloy Mendez. And his farm was on the high flat part, and then there was because it's all mountains there, right? There was a big slope. It went down into a narrow valley, and it fell into that valley. It flew over his house, released smoke, and crashed there. He didn't have the courage to look. That was around 7 to 8 p.m. And right after, around 11 p.m., the military personnel arrived and stopped people from entering. He said, you guys will have to stay isolated and can't do it. Don't say anything to anyone, including...
These people from the farm, so they were approached by the military there, who told them to stay quiet and keep to themselves.
They even brought trucks inside and went to investigate what was happening down there. They didn't allow people to go out and see anything. They only found out 2 days later when they were allowed to leave, but they didn't get any explanation. Nothing.
Do you recall if they were army?
Military army personnel? That's what I heard most directly from there. And after that, just the things one person said, another person said, Pagkatsini, Pagkatsini.
Birajara?
Birajara. And another one there, less known too, who used to pass on some information and stuff, but nothing concrete, that's all. Like,
Just rumors, right?
exactly, but in the case of the girls who went further and who really, the firefighters were called and all, and they captured a creature in the woods there, and that's it. But nobody managed to document anything, and it was known that there were films about it, but nobody released them to show because they were related to a military person and all, so no.
They couldn't release anything.
They were scared to release anything, right? In the Varginha case, it was me who found out and got involved. And
In your opinion, was the Varginha case real? Did something actually happen or not?
no, that's not a doubt. In fact, that craft that crashed there, which I know well, afterwards it was taken to that pink house, if I'm not mistaken, which is here near Votorantim, over there. Before they used to do atomic research and such. It was taken to
Aramara, there in Ipero, that region?
It was near Ipero, exactly. And after that, I didn't hear anything else. I heard that after that, there were a lot of Americans around trying to keep everyone quiet. In the Virginia area, right?
There were also several Americans here at Unicamp, right? Wandering, as we heard.
But it was Palhares there who had contact with those people who came here, and he also kept quiet, so I don't know what else to say about that.
And so, coming back here to the region, right? There were several cases, right, of landings as well. And even after Varginha, I remember there was like a big wave of the chupacabra, right?
Me too. What I personally took part in was in Montemor, at a farm there. The guy raised sheep, and one day there was noise, all that crying and stuff. The sheep started bleeding. And in the morning, when he went to check, he found 2 newborn lambs, right? With puncture wounds and no blood on their bodies. And after they performed an autopsy on the animals, the internal organs were removed, but not
There was
internal organs through a small hole. What kind of surgery was done to remove it, I don't know. Or was it sucked out? That I wouldn't know how to say, but I checked it, I took pictures, but those pictures of mine disappeared. How much of this went to the West? That has nothing to do with the research. When I lost the drawers of that desk, all the documents were inside them. And other cases here, there was a rodeo party here in Americana, and a couple went there and were coming back. I think it was about 1 a.m. They were coming back and saw lights here. They were coming from northeast, east, and northeast to here towards the west-southwest. And they saw lights there. And following those lights, they were following State Route 304 here on the left side, coming from over there. And they called me on my cell phone. Look, I'm seeing this and that. They said, what do you think and all that? From where I was, I couldn't see up here on the highway because it was 50, 60 meters above the highway and also to the side of the highway. So neither of us could.
Were able to see that?
Ralph had taken my car, so I couldn't take the car and come after. So I had to stay with him on the phone, and then they followed up. And a bunch of people started lining up behind him, walking slowly, following that light, all the way to the industrial district of Piracicaba, right here at the entrance to Caterpillar. The ship came down on the left side, right where I was. He went to the right and climbed up the hill. He wanted to go near the ship, but his girlfriend got nervous and asked him not to go, not to go, not to go, and all that. And he stayed about 300 meters away from the ship. And Ralph stayed there for about 15 minutes. I don't know if he was either researching or handling some damage they faced. I know that after about 15 minutes, there were already a lot of vehicles stopped on this side of the road. Nobody wanted to get close there either, right? Then it rose up and went 45 degrees to the west until it disappeared.
That one actually landed, right? It landed. Did you ever go to any of those landings that happened here in the region?
In that case, not there because it was very disturbed. That was the industrial district. People would dump things there. I went there later to take a look, but there were no marks at all. Because the ground there was really hard and rocky, and people would dump debris, things that shouldn't be there. So
it wasn't possible to identify a mark or anything like that. But was there any other case where you could see a mark or something like that? Do you remember anything?
There was one in Paracicaba. It must also be reported in my files somewhere, including it was a small craft and it hovered over the roof of a house there and left a mark of white powder on top of the roof. That's right, I went there later the following week, which was on the weekend. In the middle of the week, I went there to take a look, and really there was a whitish mark that was fading, but it was there.
Did you collect material for analysis?
No, because it had already rained actually and all that. Only the coloring was left. There was nothing else tangible. And then there were those cases over in Vargem, Grande do Sul, where I went there 3 or 4 times. In fact, I was invited by the DA Internet Protocol television team from São Carlos, and I couldn't get the video of that recording, which would have been interesting.
Tell me a little about those investigations in Vargem Grande do Sul.
In Vargem Grande, there's this case. In fact, I was at the ranch of the person who is he had a real estate agency and he had a ranch there on the edge of a valley. On one side it's Sao Paulo, on the other side it's Minas Gerais. And it's a valley that goes way down and then rises up on the other side as well. It's all mountains on the sides. And I
came at the border there between Sao Paulo and Minas.
And I was there while I was chatting with him and all. And he also operated the Citizens Band that I used to operate at the time. And he was also talking about the Citizens Band, and he was telling me what he could see from there and all. And a boy said, "Hey, uncle, it's his nephew. Look over there, something is passing down in the valley. We looked, it's an object. From above it's round." Then when he tilted it a little, he saw that it was disc-shaped. Because of the distance, it wasn't possible to estimate the size exactly, but it wasn't small. It was over 20 meters in diameter. And it calmly passed through the valley, then rose until it disappeared. Then, through the PX radio, he communicated with someone from a city ahead. I don't remember the name. And a colleague of his there went to take a look too. It's not passing through here now. It was even confirmed. And then there was the case of those ships that landed in the small town. I forgot the name, but there's a video about it. It got really dark because over there the lighting is all dim, only 220 volts, and it didn't have the brightness like our lights here, right? The thing was kind of yellowish. I did several interviews there. There were 2 cases. In one, the craft came down. The guy was entering the city. The craft came down in front of him. He stopped there, and after a while he lost sight of the craft. He went back and went around the city. And the other case was a lady who was at home and heard the noise and everything. She opened the kitchen door and said there was something like a spindle spinning in her service area. It was about 1.5 meters by 1 meter, a little over a meter there.
Yeah, those famous probes, right? Ufological?
No, it wasn't. It was something else. She said it was spinning, making a noise, and had lights. It had
Lights all around it.
Yeah, it looked like a spindle. The spindle didn't, it started out thin and then it was round. It was round.
Like a spinning top.
It's like a spinning top with two ends, one pointing up and one pointing down. And she stayed there, and her son, who lives next door, arrived. She called him, and he came over. Then he couldn't open the door, but through the wall you could see the light spinning. The light was passing through the wall.
It was passing through the
The light. And then, after some time, the light went out, the noise disappeared. They opened the door and went there, and no, they didn't see anything else, and there was no sign of anything either. It never touched the ground, it just floated there. And there was one more case, simultaneously in the same city. That city over there is. It's kind of sloped, there's the top, a hill, and then it's kind of rounded, a slope. A highway goes through there, and only one street goes through the city, and at the top there's There was a little movie theater there on the main street. I left the theater, 2 girls and a guy. And when they got to the corner to go down, because they lived in the lower part there, they saw something like a luminous explosion had happened down there, and they stopped to look. From this luminous explosion, 3 beings in red jumpsuits came out. They walked a bit down the street, and then there was another luminous explosion, and they disappeared. They only went home after that because they got scared, as if
a portal opened. They appeared again. That light opened up and they disappeared.
They vanished into the light?
The clothing was red.
Red.
And the face was like this. I was...
With a helmet.
With a helmet?
Helmet. And those were the 3 cases that we investigated there. There was also the case of our animal's fur, which could be found even on the fence, along with other animal fur on the farm. So it was collected for research, for examination. They said it was from a regular animal. But the creature managed to leap up a ramp that was about 8 or 9 meters high. From down there, it jumped and hit the wire, then came back. Then it came and went under the wire. The guys were on top of a tractor there, and it's funny because the guys said the animal's teeth looked like diamonds. It had like a hyena's, It was rounded. The front part and the back part were thinner, about the size of a large feeder dog.
It had what looked like fangs.
Fangs it did. When it opened its mouth, its teeth shone like diamonds.
It was shining?
It was shining. And he went around the tractor because the tractor driver's son was in the trailer bed, and the tractor driver was on the tractor. They stopped right in the animal's path because they saw when the animal was coming down there. On the other side, it crossed a pasture, and there was a marsh right below that embankment. The little road marked the farm's entrance. And he went up there, and then in a short time, he went up the other side I think it was about 800 meters or more up the hill. He went up until he disappeared. And an uncle of this young man, who was a tractor driver, was coming there on horseback, and this animal crossed in front of him. Even the horse got scared and all. He held the horse, the animal crossed the road, looked at him, and crossed to the other side. And they say that afterwards I didn't talk to the witness after that. But on the San Juan de Boa Vista side, already on the other side of the hill, this animal was seen there too, with a difference of 20 minutes. From the ranch to the other side is another 20 kilometers.
So the movement was really fast, right?
It moves fast.